Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wheat from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a stifling victory by the Seattle Kraken, rolling in on the tail end of a 6-game road trip, knocking off the Jets. Let's pause for a second. We don't want to talk about other teams because I know that can upset people, but let's get in and think a little bit. Get in behind the wheel, take a drive for Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive, and think just from the perspective of the Seattle Kraken. If you take a look at this game, I don't see it being a massively high event game. I see there's a lot of, interrupted flow to the game, a lot of kind of rugby scrum kind of moments in the neutral ice. This is, if you are the head coaches of the Seattle Kraken, you think that you just walked in to Winnipeg, one of the toughest teams to play against, and played the perfect road game. And I gotta say, it's kind of what I saw. Now I know when your team loses, there's this instinct to say, yeah, but we hit the post early. That almost went. And come on, guys, you take a look at how many posts have gone. The Jets opposition has hit posts against them so far this year. If you need to live off that, fine, live off that. And, high danger chances. Ken and I were just off camera talking a little bit. He's going to be into the show here right away here, folks. And high danger chances were more on the Jets position here. I'll take a look at it. I walked away from this game and I thought the things that the Jets do to succeed, the things that we see from the Jets where they get the puck, they rag it along the boards, they hold it in your zone, they trap you in there, they create confusion, they create opportunity like that, they enter the zone easily, they move it out of their zone fairly easily. I think a lot of the things that make the Winnipeg Jets a really good hockey team, you could see them working on it tonight, but I think for the most part, the Seattle Kraken took away a lot of the things that make the Winnipeg Jets a really good hockey team. So for me, I take a look at this game and remember last year, the Jets would play the Utah Mammoth, who were the Utah Hockey Club at the time. And they'd be these tight games, and Utah won a couple, and it would always be excused. It's, we didn't have our game. I get it. You want to think every time your team loses, it's because your team really didn't show up and they lost that game, and the other team's, blah, blah. I think, like I would say about the Utah Hockey Club, because we're talking about last year, I thought those were important games to pay attention to, just like the games against LA were important to pay attention to, because they show something that the Jets can struggle against. And here's the deal. The Winnipeg Jets so far this year have played a really beneficial schedule. If you take a look at it, it's going to be basically a beneficial schedule until kind of late November-ish. Props to Christian O'Mell from CJOB, who pointed out, kind of with the Lowry surgery, with the Sandberg being out and Perfetti being out, how fortuitous it is that it's happening during a stretch of time that the Jets are just basically playing a whole roster of teams that missed the playoffs last year. But what the Jets have showed so far, I'm not trying to take anything away from the Jets and how they've started. It was the same thing last year, and we saw, even though they went through that early part of the season and feasted while the sun was, made hay while the sun was shining, they continued to be a good team after that. I still think they will continue to be a good team after that. But what we've seen in a lot of the games so far this season is that the Winnipeg Jets at their very base, the way that they fall, even if they're not at the very top of their game or players aren't going yet, they play their system, and their base is kind of where a good chunk of the league, in my opinion, almost half the league, they're just trying to get up to that level. That's the Jets' base. That's just, we go out, let's play a hockey game where our base is usually good enough to beat teams in this league. And what you'd find is you find teams that make mistakes against the Jets. They're not quite there. They break under the pressure of the Jets. This, to me, was like the Jets looking in a mirror, right? Maybe one of those fun house mirrors that's a little bit distorted. Maybe your jaw is a little too big or whatever's going on there. But the Seattle Kraken, they're not as good looking as the Winnipeg Jets. They don't have as much high-end talent. They're not a team that's going to be able to score their way out of a lot of problems. And if they go down 2-0 or 3-0 in this game, I like the Winnipeg Jets' chances of coming back from 3-0 against a team more than I like the Seattle Kraken, because they can't score their way back into a game. But what we did see here tonight is a team that matched the strength of the Jets. What's the strength of the Jets? Their structure and their details. And the Seattle Kraken, I thought, came in on this night. Their details were great. And I think what that led to was the Winnipeg Jets struggling to find rhythm, struggling to find flow. A lot of the passes that they make were turned around, headed back in the other direction. They were forced to defend quite a little bit more. When they did get the puck into Seattle's zone, they weren't able to trap them in there. Seattle was able to. Vince Dunn, I thought, had a great night of just being patient, absorbing, drawing in the Winnipeg Jets forecheck, and then just moving the puck to the open man. Their passing in little tight areas to get the puck out of the zone was really on point. What happened to you tonight, if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan and you were watching this game and you were frustrated by that game, yeah, that's what it feels like to play the Winnipeg Jets. If you're the Calgary Flames the other night, if you're the New York Islanders, especially the Philadelphia Flyers, whose fans were booing like crazy, it's frustrating to play a team whose details are on, and they don't let you play with the puck, and they don't give you clean passes, and they attack you along the boards rather than allowing you to play with it. This, to me, is a case of the Jets walked in, they looked in the mirror and saw a team that does a lot of the same things. Are the Jets a more capable team? Undeniably, and it's not close. But we've said in the past, the Jets don't need their top stars or people to be going, or sometimes Connor Hellebuyck can have an off night and they'll still win games because their structure will win them games. The Seattle Kraken, tired, coming off 6 games on the road, playing their last game before heading home, where a lot of times teams can fall into a trap and not be there, were structured, and they held to their structure. Their structure did not break. They Winnipeg Jets, the Winnipeg Jets on this night, and that's why the Winnipeg Jets have their second loss of the season. That, my friends, is the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive before we get Kenny into this show here. And hey, this month the Toyota Get In and Go event is on now at Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent. Finance the 2025 Tacoma truck from 5.89% with up to a 1% loyalty rate reduction and a $1,500 accessory credit. But hurry, not much time here, folks. The offer ends October 31st. So visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. All right, I've blathered on enough. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business. Here comes. I'll tell you this, Kenny is jonesing so hard for golf that he hasn't been playing here, that he's messing with my production clearly so that he can hear that golf ball teed off twice, messing around with the buttons. Hey, if he keeps it up, you're going to start seeing random star wipes happen in the show over and over again because he's messing around in the control room over there. Couple things I wanted to say, Ken. First, because we're on the topic of Toyota, one of the really, I'm kind of loving it, side effects of doing our partnership with Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent is me talking about, the 2000 Toyota Yaris I've been driving for years, and then moving on and going to be buying a new vehicle as I pass it on to Renny Jr. Is all the mail that I've been getting from folks who listen with love letters about Yaris's. I think it's kind of, I've found a community here. I've had like 7 messages from people who are like, by the way, my father-in-law had a Toyota Yaris. I was driving it for a bunch of years there, and it was just absolutely the best. I love that car. I absolutely love that car. It's going to be hard for me to move on. But you know what? Every time I go see the folks down at Jim Pattison Toyota, walk into that room, I see some Tacomas. I see a bunch of the different things in there. And I got to say, it's got me thinking, this Tacoma ad that we're running right now. Maybe I should just go rogue on Mrs. Renny. She's expecting me to bring home a RAV4. Maybe I'm just going to go, that redneck version of Renny from way back in the day, whose buddies all drive big pickup trucks and all bugged Renny for those years for driving his Toyota Yaris. Maybe I'll just go rogue, come home with a Tacoma or something like that, or a Tundra. Lots of great vehicle options. The other thing I wanted to say is you got the memo, wearing the kind of maroonish tie with the blue jacket. I'm always cognizant we can't wear this when the Colorado Avalanche are in town. This is a little bit of Colorado Avalanche colors. We know, though, when to wear the right things. And we know that, Ken, because we are told how to dress by Frankie and the boys down at Vittorio Rossi on Corridon Avenue. They give you everything you need to know to be an educated, well-dressed man. So if you want to be that, an educated, well-dressed man, head on down there, walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and you will walk out exactly that, a well-dressed, educated on fashion man. Ken, what'd you see out there tonight?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one, right? It wasn't the Jets' best, I don't think, by any stretch. At the same time, I think that the Seattle Kraken did an excellent job in terms of game planning. You mentioned the Utah blueprint, if you will, that we saw last year on several occasions. I think that Lane Lambert had a pretty important plan that he put together, and they did a great job of. I think the theme that we heard from both Kyle Connor and Neil Pionk was that there was a lack of second chance opportunities for the Jets, and I mean that's twofold. That means that one team is protecting the house, and that means the other team is not spending enough time around the blue paint, right? So I don't think it was a willingness issue, but in terms of getting there, I mean, the boxing outperformed the getting to the blue paint for me today, Sean. So that was maybe the biggest thing in terms of generation. I mean, high danger chances were tilted heavily, according to Natural Stat Trick, to the Jets at even strength 9.5. So, I mean, that's a 64% chance. But again, you and I both agree on this. I thought that Seattle generated ample high danger chances, and some of their chances that might have been outside of where the heat map is were sneak attack shots that were actually really good saves made by Connor Hellebuck. And I think the Matty Beniers one is a great example of that. It might have been, taken from outside the home plate area, though I'm not certain that it was. But it wasn't marked as a high danger, even though it was one of the better saves that we saw in this game. It's an interesting game. I think Scott O'Neill's showed some frustration with what he saw in the second period. Kyle Connor used the word discombobulated, which is a great word and should be used at all times. And as a reporter, when you hear discombobulated, you better find a way to get it into the story, both video stories and written stories. So for me, I mean, I can't be overly critical because the Jets, didn't give up a ton. Their defensive play was mostly sound. They gave up one 5-on-5 goal where they were just a little bit loose defensively, and Jaden Schwartz got to the net. I mean, it was not a high danger chance from Shane Wright, right? It was a wrist shot from outside. The Jets didn't do a very good job on that shift of clearing the front of the net or finding the stick of Jaden Schwartz. And when Jaden Schwartz gets to the net, he finds a way to bury it. I mean, this is a guy that has scored some big goals against the Jets throughout his career. And he got another couple today, one of them into the empty net and another one at 5-on-5. So I don't think the Jets were particularly bad in this game. I don't think it was their A game necessarily, but they definitely weren't at their, elite level. And this is interesting, Sean. I mean, what you see from teams at the end of a 6-game, 12-day road trip normally is one of two things. either one team is very tired and disinterested to a degree and ready to get home, but because the Kraken had lost consecutive games to the tune of 9-3 after a really good start, they were sharper in a lot of ways than the Jets were. So to me, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting game. It's not one that Scott O'Neill will be, bent out of shape over, but I think it's a missed opportunity for the Jets in some ways. But again, it's a game that there are some learning lessons, but I just think execution wasn't as great. And Joey Daccord was very good on some of the chances. I mean, there were some close calls for the Jets, if you will. I think, best chance the Jets had is that Morrissey redirection off the crossbar. And, Gabe Velarde maybe had a chance. It was around it. The puck was loose. He just couldn't get there first, whether his stick was checked or he just didn't bury it or find a way to find it we'd have to have another look at it. But overall, the Jets were okay, but they weren't as crisp as they have been. And, sometimes when you have a game like that, which, it's the kind of game that happens over the course of the season. They've had, I don't even want to call it I wouldn't even call it a poor effort. It wasn't a poor effort. They had a, middle period where they weren't great, but overall, it just was it was a ho-hum game. Mediocre, I would say.
I'm going to go rogue here, and I'm going to pick a fight with you, Ken Weeb, and a whole bunch of people in the audience. And I'm going to do so by giving you the Pristine Roofing wake-up call right now. To look at what's happened over the years. I'm using your wake-ups against you.
Oh, good.
Let's just set this up before I get into it. You know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake-up call. You will be glad that you did. Just like some of you are going to be happy I'm giving this Pristine Roofing wake-up call. I'm not sure I like was it their best game or was it their sharpest or all this?
Seattle was great. Sorry, before you berate me, Seattle was great in the game.
I like berate's a good word too. We should use that whenever we possibly can. But I don't even know what that means if a team is on the top of their game. Does it mean that you dominate from first drop of the puck until the end of the game? Because I take issue with how the Jets played tonight was not affected by what the Seattle Kraken did. Just like what we saw against them in the playoffs against the St. Louis Blues last year, a Jets team that, was dominant throughout the regular season and got to the playoffs, finishing in first place, and then playing against the last seed to make it into the playoffs and seeing, some games they played really well, right? Like the games 1 and 2, they play really well. Game 6, they play really well. They got definitely dominated, and those for sure weren't their best games in 3, 4, and 6 on the way to the 7-game series here. But I don't know that I like it when I hear people afterwards be like, oh, well, they weren't on top of their game or it wasn't their sharpest game. How are we to not suggest that this is what the Winnipeg Jets look like when a team does this to them? And that's where I'm not the biggest fan of, let's throw it away. It wasn't their sharpest game type of analysis.
That wasn't what I was saying.
I know it's not what it kind of does sound like what you're saying, but I would just say this when we are constantly saying, they weren't their sharpest, or, I'll go along with it's a failed opportunity. You get a team that's on the tail end of a 6-game road trip coming into your barn. That's definitely an opportunity to go and try and cram it down their throats. Did the Winnipeg Jets do that tonight? Clearly they didn't. But maybe they weren't going to be allowed to. Like the idea that the Winnipeg Jets just are going to get to their game and the other team is going to fall away and break in front of this freight train that's got, one of those snow plows on it and goes driving down the road and everything just flies out of its way. I think that's a ridiculous idea. And I would suggest again that we can't just say the Winnipeg Jets ran into a team that knew how to play against them well, game planned against them well, executed very well, and went toe-to-toe with the Winnipeg Jets and suggest that it's because the Winnipeg Jets weren't on the top of their game.
Well, you don't agree? Do you think the Jets were at the top of their game? That was my point. I think it has everything to do with Seattle. in that game because of the way that they boxed out and
Okay,
defended.
what is the Jets at the top of their game? What is that?
Well, how
mean?
many sustainable? When we saw maybe I'm going to count 3 extended zone time shifts for the Scheifele line.
Right.
That's when they're on top of their game. When they're spinning their opponent into a top
against the Calgary Flames, against the Nashville Predators. Like, yeah, hey, we know the Jets are firing on all cylinders when they take a team and cram it down their throat and then let them out of their zone. But there's some teams that you're just not going to get to do that again. So does that mean they're not at the top of their game? Or does it mean that the degree of difficulty upped tonight? And this is what the Jets, as they currently sit right now, look like against a team that will push back in a way that the teams they've played before them tonight have not been able to.
Well, it's a combination of both things. I mean, I'm arguing on the same side of you. I'm just looking at it from a different part of the coin. I mean, the Seattle Kraken had just given up 9 goals, but Scott O'Neill was telling us in the morning that their defensive analytics were incredibly improved under Lane Lambert. And that's exactly what we saw, right? But, I mean, if you're just looking at the box, or not you and I, but if anyone is just looking at the box score from the last 2 games, they're thinking, well, Seattle can't be that hard to play against defensively. But obviously they were. Their defense did a great job of limiting second chance opportunities. That's because they were great at boxing out and making it hard to get there. So, I mean, again, I'm happy to give Seattle lots of credit. I didn't find the Jets to be, when you don't generate second chance opportunities, that's also an example of the Jets not being at their best. But again, the opponent has lots to do with that. So, again, I just don't. I'm happy to give Seattle credit. They played great today. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Decord had to make a couple good saves for sure. Lots of dangerous chances. I don't think the Jets are as sharp as they have been. And again, even at 1-0, it looked like a game that they could either tie on the power play because it's been so great this year, or find a way to get it even like they did against Calgary. I mean, based on what we've seen, Seattle to me looks like a better team than Calgary at this time of the year. But anyways, I'm happy to take the wake up call. I didn't find a lot of stuff from the Jets to dig into because, like you're saying, and I'm also saying, as Matt Hyman's saying, can't 2 things be true? Yeah. I didn't think the Jets were particularly as dangerous as usual, but that's because Jamie Alexiak was very effective defensively. So was Vince Dunn. I mean, you nailed it. I mean, we were talking before the game, and we'll get into it a little bit more. Doug Armstrong was here, we presume, to watch Mark Scheifele and Josh Morrissey about Team Canada. I mean, I think that was probably his primary reason for being here. But hey, I mean, there are other players that are going to catch someone's attention when you're in the building. So, anyways.
Yeah, no doubt.
And Vince Dunn is from Mississauga. So, I mean, Vince Dunn could be very much on the radar too for Team Canada. And Doug Armstrong obviously knows Vince Dunn pretty well, having had him in St. Louis.
I thought he was great tonight. Played extremely.
Yeah, one of the best players on the ice.
He was at the top of his game. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, of his game, yes.
I mean, I would say this: the Jets could be at the top of their game against a really, really tough team and go out and grind out, like a 15 to 14 shot count game and maybe win by 1, maybe win by 3, maybe lose by 2, that kind of thing. I think the suggestion that the Jets at the top of their game just sock you in and don't let you touch the puck and all that kind of stuff is what we see from the Jets when the Jets are against a fairly inferior opponent, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. Like, I think it's wrong and I think it's leading to the kind of reactions that we got last season when they played Utah, the Utah Hockey Club, and the Jets would lose these games and people would be like, oh yeah, they didn't show up tonight, blah, blah. And it's like, no, watch what's happening here. Utah is doing something that is challenging the Jets. This is what the Jets look like under duress against other teams that don't put them under duress. So my example of that is when they were in the playoffs, and do we suggest that the games that they beat St. Louis, the games that they beat Dallas, they were at the top of their game, and then the games that they lost where the Blues, pummeled them, or Dallas found ways to win game, that they just weren't at the top of their game. Like, when you've got a good team, you are playing off and reacting to. So I think we fall into this idea that the Jets, as I was saying, at their baseline are better than a good chunk of the league. So a lot of those teams that come rolling in here, and they're just trying to figure themselves out, and they're trying to get their systems down, and they're adding young players into the lineup, and they're trying to figure things out as they go, and they're trying to build chemistry, and then they run into the Winnipeg Jets, and the Winnipeg Jets system challenges them, and they crumble. It's not that that team's not at its best. It's that that team got challenged and didn't handle the challenge in a way because they were challenged. So I would say this: I don't buy into the idea that the Jets weren't at the top of their game. The Jets got challenged tonight in a way that they haven't been challenged so far this year. And this is what that looks like. This is what it doesn't mean they didn't step and rise to it. Listen, this game is one goal. That's all it is. It's one, and we'll get to that. Well, let's get to it right now. This game comes down to one play. Connor Hellebuyck was brilliant in this game. It's a bad rebound that he spits out off not the hardest shot. He kicks it into the center of the ice. It gets into the back of the net. That's it. Otherwise, if the Winnipeg Jets score first in this game, we're sitting here, we're talking right now about a 2 or 3-0 win by the Winnipeg Jets, who probably add an empty net goal or two. And then the Seattle Kraken, we're sitting here talking about how the Seattle Kraken are a team that can't score to get their way back into that game. And the Winnipeg Jets, are just, patient and handle this. And that, that's the difference in this game. So I think it's not as simple as that. It's not as simple as the Jets didn't have their legs tonight. Jets didn't have their A game. This is the Winnipeg Jets got challenged by a team in a way that they were not being challenged by other teams so far this year, and they came out on the wrong end of it. And it's as simple as that, and I don't think it should be excused as the Jets didn't have it tonight or the Jets weren't at the top of their game. This was a challenge put in front of them. They didn't get past that challenge. They've got to adapt and approach that challenge in a different way next time to get over the hump. Or, quite simply, don't make that one mistake. How many times have we talked about the Winnipeg Jets are a team that doesn't make mistakes and their opposition does? And that's quite often the difference in the game. Seattle really didn't make mistakes tonight, and give them credit for that. The Winnipeg Jets, sometimes in the way that we're suggesting they are on top of their game, are a team that simply capitalizes on mistakes, like against the Calgary Flames when Nazem Kadri decided to check out of a shift that allowed the Winnipeg Jets an odd man rush to go in and win the game. They capitalized on a mistake. They didn't make the mistake. Calgary did. That's the difference in this one. I don't think it's the Winnipeg Jets didn't have the top of their game or all their juice or whatever. They got challenged, and that challenge was tough for them tonight.
Yeah, my argument, Sean, is that the Jets don't get shut out very often. So, that means good goaltending. It doesn't mean that the Jets didn't have it, but often the Jets find a way. They haven't been shut out on home ice since 2024, I think. So that's all I'm saying. And I'm with you. I don't think the Jets had their A game on Monday either, but they found a way to get it done. So I'm not just here saying that, if the Jets don't have their A game, they can't win. We've seen the Jets win without their A game, and then we've also seen them, put the pedal down and blow some teams out of the water. That's also part of it over a long season. And, but again, I also don't think it was a lack of effort. It just, they weren't playing as well as their opponent, and their opponent is going home happy. Seattle should have been, we heard Scott Arniel talk about Calgary being a wounded animal. Well, today Seattle looked like a wounded animal, and they did the job. And like you said, it came down to one play. It was a rebound that Connor Hellebuyck would probably like to have back, but that's a play that, I think that the Jets, sort outs weren't very good on that play either. I don't know that Schwartz should have been as open. So, that's the stuff that kind of happens over the course of the year. And today the Jets are, their chances of 15-1 have come crashing down thanks to a good effort by their opponent.
Yeah.
But again, it's 5-game winning streak. If I had told you, Sean, that the Jets would be 5-2, not playing without three of their best players, they probably should be thrilled, whether they're playing non-playoff teams from last year or not.
Just because I'm a dog with a bone and I can't let it go. Matt
Oh,
Hyman
please.
said something good before where he'd said, can it be both? And, it felt like he was trying to keep the divorce lawyers at bay because we started going into a little bit of a dark place there, Ken, you and I. He says this, maybe Seattle implemented their game plan and the Jets were not crisp. I counter by saying this, maybe the Jets weren't crisp because Seattle implemented their game plan. That is as clear and concise as I can say this down the stretch here. Anyway, I do want
I
to.
thought you were going flame and comfort there.
Well, no, I it's not that bad. I mean, he's just got it backwards. That's all. You know what I mean? It's like the math test when you show your work. You know what I mean?
Comfort could also be good. It doesn't have to be
bad. His work, and he's well, but it's not good or it's not bad. It's almost like the incomplete answer on the test, right? He added when he was supposed to subtract, or he multiplied when he was supposed to divide. He got the back end in the front. He's just got it mixed up. But I mean, we'll go in a different. Actually, I've got one ready for that, and it's one of those ones because it's a sweetheart that I'm going to give the flame and comfort hot take to, but she'll be happy because it won't be the last time she hears her name in this show here tonight. So stick around if you think that may be you. I wanted to get to one here. Did you see the Spit and Chicklets guys brought up the Mason Marchment fake punch to Logan Stanley and said 2 for flinching was kind of the joke that was made there. I wanted your take on this play.
I don't have a particular take. If someone winds up, I think it's natural to flinch. And anyone who thinks that again, Sean, I'm going to defer to you. You were in a lot more fights than I was, but I didn't find Logan's push on Marchment to be particularly out of bounds. Marchment having fun with it, fine. I have no problem with him laughing about it, but I think he also invited himself into being punched in the face the next time that there's a scrum around the net. But that's the way that he plays, Sean. My only thought on this is what you and I talked about for 3 years. I think that I think Mason Marchment is the kind of person that could fit in with the Jets because he plays with a little bit of an edge when he's at his best. And, there were some times last year, including in the playoff series, where I didn't particularly like the dives that we saw from Mason Marchment, but he's got offensive upside. He's a big, strong guy. He can play a physical game, goes to the hard areas, and he's not afraid to mix it up. So I've got lots of time for Mason Marchment. Again, in terms of the flinching, I don't really have a strong opinion on it. Do you?
Well,
what do you want him to do there? Like, do you want him to just stand there and take a punch in the face, Logan?
Oh, of course not.
Okay.
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think you think that I'm going to go off on Logan Stanley here. That's not the case at
all.
Logan Stanley, to your point, a guy goes and all of a sudden fakes like he's going to punch you in the face when you're in a tense standoff kind of situation. It's human nature. There's nothing wrong with him flinching in that situation. I think, now Mason Marchment probably gets a little bit what he wants. It's a little bit of a tiny little hockey viral moment, spitting chicklets, that's kind of their brand of what that would be. Have a little bit of fun with it, have a little bit of humor with it. That humor is going to come at the expense of Logan Stanley in this. But to me, this is like one of these things where, you're putting money in the bank, but the return when you pull that out is not going to be what you like. So talked with some really, really tough NHL players before. And I've had conversations with people who have tilted and with Logan Stanley. And they've said to me, this guy's the real deal. Right. And I don't know about you, Ken, and I'm going to, defer to any people who have played hockey out there. I remember I played this one series. I won't bring the guy's name into it, but I was playing senior hockey.
But he knows who he is.
Well, he probably doesn't. You know who he is. I actually think you played with him before, and he's a big, huge defenseman. One of those names that is like 2 first names. You're probably going to zero in on who I'm talking about. But I was a guy who like when I played, I didn't mind getting hurt, right? Like my tolerance for pain is high, and sometimes it felt to me like, pain was the price you paid to get what you needed there. And then there are some people who are tough enough that they can punish you to the point that you're like, yeah, okay, I don't want that anymore. All right. And Logan Stanley with Mason Marchment, and maybe Mason Marchment, now that he's out of the Central Division, he knows he's not going to see Logan Stanley a lot, doesn't have to worry about it as much. But a play like that is designed to kind of try and embarrass a guy, and then to laugh at him afterwards. That's you got whatever's coming to you coming.
Yeah.
Kind of moment. And that's the way that I see it. And what I see from Logan Stanley is a guy who doesn't lose his cool in that moment. He doesn't take a penalty. So if Mason Marchment is trying to create a scenario, and let's be honest with ourselves, like I was almost wondering, is this bordering into a play where a referee will assign an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, right? Because, you go like you're going to like haul off and smoke someone and don't do it. It's not very sportsmanlike. So he gets away with it. He gets his little laugh. He gets to do that. I like the way Logan Stanley responds to this. Exactly. He kind of stands there afterwards and he just watches them. I think Mason Marchment has earned himself whatever kind of rough treatment Logan Stanley is going to give. And this is the kind of thing that sticks in a player's mind. And we could be saying, Ken, on Kenny and Renny 5 years from now in a game where I don't know if Mason Marchment is still with whoever, or if Logan Stanley's still with the Winnipeg Jets, but it could be one of these things where we say, you know what, Ken, you remember that play? It was a nothing game where the Jets didn't have their A game in in October, and that happened. He faked that punch at him, and he's still taking his pound of flesh all these years later. I can see that happening. There is no doubt in my mind Mason Marchment is nowhere near as tough as Logan Stanley is. Logan Stanley can take his pound of flesh. My guess is it's going to happen going forward, and it's probably going to be one of those things where this isn't one of those things where you laugh it up and it's like, ha, that's funny. It's one of those things where it's like, really? Okay, I'm coming for you. And it's going to happen over and over. And some kind of things you just don't get over. And some kind of things you're just like, I'm just going to repeatedly punish that guy over it. He's taken the number. That number is probably not going to get raced off the chalkboard at any point. I think Mason Marchment is going to see a lot of scoring from Logan Stanley. And I think, and quite honestly, he more than earned it with a play like that. I think that's an unsportsmanlike play. He's going to have what's coming to him when it comes to, the kind of retribution angle of that. Where do you want to go next? You want to go goalies?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine for me. Yeah, I mean, Daccord I thought was quite solid. Like I said, I mean, quite a few high danger chances for the Jets. There were, not a ton of sustained pressure, but even strength. I mean, the Jets had 4 of their 9 high dangers in the first period, so they played a very direct game in the first. Maybe caught Seattle a little bit slow out of the gate at the end of a long trip, but they got a little bit too cute in the second, and maybe didn't bear down on a few chances. But I liked Daccord's game, but I also liked Hellebuck's game, Sean. He's been really locked in here, dialed. And again, you and I are both in agreement. People that say, oh yeah, he gave up 5 in the first game, but yeah, that's true, but he could have given up a lot more. And since that time, he's barely given up anything. I thought he's been particularly sharp, even strength on the power. I mean, only 1 power play against today, but now 27 for 28 for the Jets. But Hellebuck has been outstanding. And, Eric Comrie's getting his second chance against the Calgary Flames on Friday night. And it's another chance for him to build on what was a excellent effort against the New York Islanders in his season debut.
I thought what we saw here was a little bit of similar, how Daccord was playing, similar to what I was talking about with Connor Hellebuck. He was really focused in on stopping cross-crease plays, like basically being that third defenseman out there. And he's able to do that because he's got confidence that the front of his net is taken care of, right? There was a couple times, I think I saw once he stuck out the paddle and ramped a pass that was coming up and out of play. It was a little bit Hellebuck-esque. I thought he doesn't have clearly that like calm, cool nature that Hellebuck has. I would say this, outside of the one mistake, I think Connor Hellebuck's the better goaltender in this game. Hard to say when it comes down to a goaltender getting a shutout. But I actually think Connor Hellebuyck faced, and I know the high danger chances are supposed to be 9-5. I think the higher danger chances go to Seattle on this night. Connor Hellebuyck, I thought, had I think we shared back and forth between the two of us 4 potential save of the game candidates in that game tonight. One of them was Matty Beniers had a really sneaky release rocket shot. I don't want to give away your thing in the end here, but I thought Connor Hellebuyck was great. He doesn't get the Reynolds Award for the better goaltender in the game because, quite honestly, the cord was ironclad in this one. And in a game like that comes down to mistakes, Connor Hellebuyck makes the one mistake, and that's the difference in this game. But that said, you could not look at that game and think that Connor Hellebuyck was a problem. Like, he was a strength on this night, which is, again, I think goes to my idea that who's to say this wasn't the Jets' A game getting challenged and just not coming on the other side of that.
I just say that because I didn't, they didn't have 4 lines going. I mean, and again, yes. that to me was one of the biggest reasons why I mentioned it in the first place, not to keep this argument alive.
Yeah, I love keeping arguments alive. It's what's going to happen between Mason Marchment and Logan Stanley, in my opinion here. I wanted to go to this just quickly. Natalie, I teased it earlier on. You said Seattle was good. That's it. We lost. The Jets had their B game. We heard this too many times with
Natalie's right, though.
I'll put the stake on it right now. Last year, I said at the beginning of the year, when the Jets were playing the Utah Hockey Club, and everyone said the Jets are on their B game, and I said, no, there's something about the way they play that challenges the Winnipeg Jets. That bore fruit every single time those teams played last year. I'll stake on it this time, as long as the Seattle Kraken aren't like plagued by injuries or anything like that. You're going to see something similar. It's going to be a tough game for the Winnipeg Jets every time they play the Seattle Kraken this year, because the Seattle Kraken and their coach put up a game plan that challenges the Winnipeg Jets and doesn't let them get to their A game. It's not that the Jets didn't show up. It's that sometimes when you're put under pressure, that doesn't allow you to reach a certain level. So, Natalie, you have the Flamin' Comfort Hot Take Award of the game. And hey, that's brought to you, of course, by Flamin' Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth-related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flamin' Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. You'll find it will be one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside. Visit Flame and Comfort. They will take care of that for you. Let's talk Brad Lambert.
Yeah.
There wasn't much there tonight. This shouldn't take long.
No.
I think the next time we see the Winnipeg Jets, which is tomorrow night, I don't believe he'll be in the lineup. That would be my take on it. There, you know how I said last time I thought he showed advancements in being the tip of the spear.
Right.
Against a team that challenged them on this night, he looked lost to me out there. There were some times he was trying to get his speed going. He got a hold of the puck one time, made a little bit of moves with it here and there. He's not the kind of player at this stage of his career who's going to help you in games like that. So I think he's had his chance to show what he needs. Parker Ford, I think, would have been a far more useful tool to use in a game like that. And I think Chibi would have been as well. I don't know if that changes because I don't think it changes because the Calgary Flames come here, but I think one of those two other players draws into the lineup tomorrow.
Yeah, it was a quiet night for Brad Lambert. It would have been special. His grandma's in the building, Uncle Lane behind the bench. He was fired up to get a second chance. He had a few more shifts, 13 shifts for 10-14. 1 shot, 3 shot attempts, 2 giveaways. I just didn't find him to be particularly active in the game, Sean. Brad is at his best when he's transporting the puck and getting going off the rush. And there just weren't a lot of rush opportunities to be had in the game. His speed is his most explosive weapon. And in a game against a team like Seattle that loves to clog the ice, there just wasn't a lot of opportunity for him to kind of unwind and kind of open up the old throttle down there, I guess, if you will. And again, unfortunately for him, in limited ice time in the last 2 games, he's been on the ice for 2 goals against in limited time against. And again, it's not his fault, but when you're only getting limited ice time and you're trying to earn the trust of the coach, it's tough when the coach, again, plus minus is not the best tool to look at, but the facts are that he's been on the ice for, the Jets have allowed 2 even strength goals in the last 2 games, Sean. And unfortunately for Brad, he has been on the ice for both of those goals against, while also not creating a ton in the offensive zone, which is his, that's his bread and butter, is creation. And right now there isn't a ton of creation happening. And I get it. Folks are saying, oh, well, that's enough AHL time. I disagree completely. I know Brad wants to be in the NHL, and I don't doubt that there's some teams where he could be an NHL player right now. But right now, I don't think he's one of the Jets' best 12 forwards right now. I think that Parker Ford plays a very specific role, and he plays that role particularly well. I've got no problem with the Jets rolling out Lambert and giving him a 2-game spin cycle here and a test for him. And same with Nikita Chibrikov earlier in the year, playing the 3 games. But I honestly, I know that some people will not agree. The Moose have a much more skilled team this year, Sean. Brad needs to go down and dominate. If they want to use him as a winger in the NHL, leave him on the wing. I know he can play center, but if you want to make him an NHL player as a winger, let him go down to the Moose, play on the wing. Whoever that's going to be with, a veteran guy or with Braden Yager, whatever they want to do, get him ice time, get his confidence up, give him a chance later on. Because right now, it's just not happening. And I understand, again, small sample size, yes. And again, some folks want to say give him a longer leash and go. That's fine too, but I don't think that's the route the Jets are going to go with right now.
On a night where I'm having to fight so many in the chat room, along with Ken, and these crazy not on their A game takes, I wanted to bring up a couple of things that I thought were interesting here, because I wanted to go in this direction. Greg Johnson says, tonight it showed the Jets are missing key pieces. You could look at that a number of ways. You could look at it, injuries and those kind of things. This is from SK, who says the Jets need another threat other than the first line. They have a first line and a 3-third lines. I mean, Jonathan Toews creeping up in points is starting to belie what's being said there. But I'll bring it to this, Ken.
Niederreiter's got 6 points also.
Yes. I'll bring it to this. And before I do that, this is a little bit of I'm trying to wrap up a whole bunch of different things that I've talked about on this show and kind of bring it and see, this is what I've been talking about leading up to this. So in order to wrap that all up, I'm going to wrap this forehead in a headband, the way that the folks at Myers are waiting for. Glenn and Jonah always staying up for the headband. So time to hit it here, folks. Time to make this a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny Show. And of course, just to bring it back to the folks at Myers, they've got the entire city wrapped up and taken care of because they deliver anywhere you need within the city. So if you've got prescription needs, if you've got health food needs, if you've got supplement needs, they've got it all taken care of. So go see our friends at Myers. Make sure you tell them that Kenny and Renny sent you. Okay.
Great section. There you go.
I wanted to have this conversation. I talked about losing Nick Ehlers. So the idea with those other guys, they're missing certain guys tonight. One of the things that made the Jets dangerous last year, Ken, you talked about it, or the last couple of years, you talked about it. You talked about when's the last time the Winnipeg Jets were shut out? When is the last time that, they ended up giving up a couple empty net goals like that? I'll say this. If you watch this game tonight, you saw Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor and a lot of those players who get into the offensive zone, Gabe Velarde. You saw those guys getting challenged along the boards in a way that doesn't typically happen, right? Those guys are on the boards. They're getting pressed. Usually they get along that outside. Teams have to protect the middle. What did I say about Nikolai Ehlers? When he gets in, he puts the defense in a defensive stance. They collapse to the middle of the ice, and they give you the outside of the ice. Now, that top line was challenged tonight by a team that was on the right side of that razor's edge, because sometimes when you are trying to challenge Mark Scheifele, he just moves the puck to where you just came from, and they move it, and they move it, and they move it as guys chase and chase and chase. And then all of a sudden it's in the back of the net because they eventually find that open guy. What Seattle did really well tonight is they got to that check and they killed the plays. How many times did Mark Scheifele get snuffed out on the boards? There wasn't that room there. But you've seen this. We've seen this happen a number of times over the last number of years when that first line just can't get things going in a situation where that heavy blanket of checking is kind of suppressing and holding everything down. Those are the games that I was talking about where Nikolai Ehlers and his speed are that kind of wild card that can be played where, yeah, this team's on top of you. Yeah, this team's being aggressive. Yeah, this team's trying to catch you on the boards. All of a sudden, Nikolai Ehlers gets out there. He's got that speed, that game-breaking speed. That you can't get to him to make that check. And now that he's got an edge on you, if you check too hard, he gets an opening and does one of those things where he comes skating in and scores one of those late game goals where he just blasts it and rips it past the goaltender, or you back off and you get to the middle ice. Now that you've got the team in the middle of the ice, you control the boards and you grind them and you hold them out there. And then what you do is, and we saw, Ken, we talked about it on this podcast. There was a play last year where Nikolai Ehlers created everything in the offensive zone, then got off the ice. Kyle Connor stepped on, got the pass, boom, it's in the back of the net. Nikolai Ehlers was on the bench, but everything that led to that was set up by Nikolai Ehlers. That's not there anymore. So in a game like that, where the Winnipeg Jets in the past have found a way to get on the other side of that, sometimes it's Adam Lowry just going, I'm going to the front of the net, try and stop me creating that. The Jets will get that back. That's going to help. No doubt it's going to help. But the element of trying to back off pressure, like we saw from a team like Seattle tonight, I personally thought the things that I've been saying about how the Jets will miss Nikolai Ehlers, that was on display in this game, because all it takes is one or two efforts by Nikolai Ehlers to get that blazing speed going, gets into the zone, backs everyone off. Now the Jets have the outside boards. Now they've got the opposition chasing. They're so good at holding on to it, tiring out the defense, holding the puck, changing while they maintain that possession. Now you get Scheifele's line on it, and now Scheifele's line gets to benefit from that space along the boards that hasn't been there all game, because it started with Nikolai Ehlers forcing the defense into that defensive position. I thought tonight was a perfect example of the tool that the Winnipeg Jets used in Nikolai Ehlers to break open one-goal games like that and turn those into wins. That missing weapon, I thought, was what it showed that it was missing tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm not disputing any of that. I just don't think that we can. I mean, just like you don't like me saying it's the Jets didn't have their A game. I mean, every time the Jets lose, I don't think we can say, well, this is the game they were missing Ehlers. There's going to be lots of nights they miss him.
I'm going to say that every night they lose, just to spite you now.
Perfect. I look forward to it. No, and it's relevant, and someone has said it in the chat room here. I mean, it's relevant not because he's not here and he chose to go elsewhere. We know that. We're not disputing that. We're not saying that's not the case. But unless there are players on the Jets' internal roster that bring that speed and element to the second line, it's going to be a piece of the puzzle they'll be looking for around the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Our question, many years is who's taking the second line center job. Again, I'm not banging my fist on the table and making a declaration after 7 games, but it looks pretty clear that Jonathan Toews, as long as he stays healthy, is going to be able to handle that job. So once Cole Perfetti gets back, let's see what the second line looks like. Let's see if Nino Niederreiter stays, if Gus Nyquist stays, if Alex Iafallo is up there, if it's somebody else. But Yeah, I mean, sure, some speed would have helped, but I mean, I agree with you that that top line didn't get as many sustained, zone time shifts, but they still had a couple where they were dangerous. And in a game like today, Kyle Connor still had 6 shots on net and 7 attempts. So I think they did their part. The big thing for me, Sean, and this is not tied to Ehlers, but right now Gabe Vilardi is not on top of his game, and I don't think you can dispute with me on that one.
I won't.
He's fighting it a little bit. He's fighting the puck. Great example is on that Morrissey chance. I just saw the replay here on the highlights. Jamie Alexiak does lift his stick, but the puck was there to be had.
Right.
Vilardi, and when you're in a goal scoring funk that dates back to the last 20 games of last year before he got hurt, getting an easy tap in like that can be all that it takes for you to go on a crazy heater. And right now, Gabe, his hands are still exceptional, but it's not coming as smoothly for him as it did in the first 55, 60 games of last year. And there's nobody that can dispute that. Again, it's not because of a lack of effort. And, the player probably would say that has nothing to do with the contract, but we've seen this, Sean, tale as old as time. Player signs big ticket, wants to live up to big ticket, and sometimes it doesn't go smoothly out of the gate. I fully expect Gabe Vilardi to get going the way that he was last year. That's why the Jets wanted him to be part of the, team for this core group for the next 6 years. So I don't, this is not a long-term concern for me, but I think a lot of the problems that are also related to the Jets missing Ehlers on some nights could be solved by someone like Gabe Vilardi going on a Gabe Vilardi hot streak, even though they do it differently.
I would just say this quickly about Gabe Vilardi. Like the way that Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele have connected so far this year has been absolutely outstanding. I think a side effect of that at times can be that when two players are almost completely and entirely in sync with each other and finding each other the way that those two have found each other this year, like some of the setups Kyle Connor has given towards Mark Scheifele have been like that game winner against Calgary. That pass is absolutely insane. Those guys are operating at an extremely high level. I think sometimes what can happen is that, and you'll have experienced it before, Ken, you start seeing chemistry with someone, and then you just start reading off the guy to the point that it starts to feel like you're reading each other's mind, right? And sometimes it'll get to the point where you get the puck and you'll just move it to a spot because you start to know the player so well that you just know that he's going to be in that spot, right? We're seeing that right now from Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, and everything goes in ebbs and flows. And I would suggest the ebb and the flow of that right now is that because those players are at the point where they're so on another level in tune with each other that the puck is just kind of going between the two of them. And I'm not saying that they're cutting Gabe Vilardi out. I'm just saying right now you go with your hot hand, right? Hey, if you got a really great pitcher, he's not going to get as many opportunities if you've got a couple guys ahead of him who are just absolutely feeling it right now, and you got to go with those guys. So they're getting deferring to each other right now. I would suggest Gabe Vilardi. Now, I'm not entirely excusing Gabe Vilardi's play. You're right. There's elements of him being a little bit snake bit right now. There's elements of him, not protecting the puck as well on the boards as he has in the past. He's not clearly, and I will give this to you, he's not specifically clearly at the top of his game. I don't think it's a problem. And the one thing that I've always said before, and I said this about things, at times last year, if you're winning and you still need things to figure out, and I said this about Logan Stanley, that's where I'd said it a lot last year. The Jets wanted something that Logan Stanley did, and because they were winning, they had time to figure it out. People were really upset, and they were saying, yeah, but this is happening, that's happening, and every once in a while it would cost them. Maybe it would even cost them a point or 2 points in a game or something like that. But the fact of the matter is, if you've got a plan and if you've got a place that you think you're traveling to, and you continue winning in the meantime, you can have patience and you can have faith and you can have trust that a player is going to get to where they want to go. The whole thing with Gabe Vilardi right now, I know that Waiters had said something about he hopes he's not relaxing because of he's not relaxing because of the contract that he just had. I don't see that happening.
Zero chance it's happening.
Gabe Vilardi is going to get to being an impact player for the Winnipeg Jets this year. I have absolutely no doubt about that. And because their system keeps them alive, and because Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor are playing the way that they are playing, they have time for Gabe Vilardi and his game to grow. And hey, one thing you can do is shoot for growth with Cambrian Wealth. Grow your wealth today to reach tomorrow's big goals. Cambrian's wealth team can assist. Invest in your future self your way. Our pals at Cambrian Wealth give straight up investing advice you can actually understand and help you make a strong financial play to get there. Book an appointment at cambrian.mb.ca. And Ken, can you give Sweet Lou a shout out while we're doing this?
You bet. One quick one. Just not as a long-term thing, but given how Taves is distributing the puck, would you consider putting Vilardi on the Taves line as a way to maybe ease some of that top line pressure?
Well, I've said this. I've said this
because you're the one who talked about testing out some other combinations,
right? And I love the idea of it. And to be honest, the way that Jonathan Toews plays, I'd be fascinated at seeing what he looks like with different players, especially a player like Gabe Vilardi. That, like, there was one play tonight I was talking about, the game-breaking speed of Nick Ehlers. There was one quick play that Jonathan Toews made. It was a forecheck, and Seattle seemed to have things under control. And then Toews did this little go gadget arm thing and just chipped the puck off of the stick and put it with that chip in a place that was counter to the direction the defenseman was going. He went around him, got the puck, and then what I was talking about that the Jets were missing, that Nikolai Ehlers helps create, happened. He got the puck. No one was near him. He had it along the boards, and now the Jets had this control, and no one was near pressing the puck, so you can't pressure the puck, because as soon as you start skating to a guy, you're in no man's land, right? You're either on the guy and checking him, or you have to defend lanes, because if you skate towards that guy, you're in no man's land. He moves the puck, and then you're going in the wrong direction. He goes in the other direction, and now you're really, really out of play, out of position. Jonathan Toews, with that one little Jonathan Toews-ism, created that situation, and it led to what it did is it started and led to that sustained bout of hockey in the third, where the Winnipeg Jets all of a sudden really, really started rolling. I was a little surprised, Ken. Scott Arniel, after that, I believe he followed up with the fourth line after that. They kept the momentum going, but I was kind of surprised he didn't go right to Scheifele's line to take advantage of it. But regardless, Jonathan Toews has this breadth of knowledge that it would be interesting to see how Jonathan Toews' hockey brain would approach playing with and working off of Gabe Vilardi, who is a brilliant hockey player, who both you and I have stated we think has one of the top 10 sets of hands in tight in the league. Sorry, Sweet Lou, give him a shout out.
You bet. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of this community, including our podcast.
Okay. Sorry, I saw something that could have been for a hot take, and it's just too late for us to go in that direction, because we need to go to the Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. You had a good one, Ken. What was it?
Yeah, you bet. Again, there weren't many miscues by Hellebuck, but he had one puck fumble in the corner, but there was Dylan DeMello there to block the shot. So we've talked about this. Connor Hellebuck has improved his puck handling immensely, but every now and then fumbles are going to happen, even with guys who handle the puck particularly well. And again, this was just another example of DeMello getting out, blocking a shot, and Connor Hellebuck picks up his teammates often. This time, Dylan DeMello picked up his goaltender,
as he so often does. That's a great pick, Ken, for the Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that is your Kenny and Renny OGs at Johnston Group's Got You Covered play of the game. And that brings us to the keg save of the game. Ken, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Beniers one you mentioned. I thought it was a real good sneak attack. Yes, there might have been some from more dangerous areas on the ice in terms of the heat map and plotting, but I thought that the wrister from Beniers, where he changes the stick angle, kind of catches Hellebuck off guard, but he sticks with it and makes a really good save on the play.
Fights it off, goes on a play so that there's not a rebound or anything like that. Really, really good one. You mentioned some shots from more dangerous areas. There was a save, I believe it was in the first period, on Chandler Stevenson, who was in a very dangerous scoring area. Key save given, what we saw from the Seattle Kraken, and that they don't need a lot to hold that lead. So, good. That was my take. You heard Ken's. Those are our hashtag the keg saves of the game. Doesn't matter what we think. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And that winner from our last show, I said you'd hear from her again. Natalie, that's why I felt Natalie's a sweetheart. I felt comfortable trying to drop the bomb of the hot take on her, because I was also going to drop the bomb of the hashtag keg save of the game victory on her. So Natalie, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email address, and I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And Ken, we've been fighting all show. I might as well tell you, I went to the keg earlier before the game today with one of the K&R folks who was in visiting from a good friend of Pat Kanuga's. They actually owned a pink Dodge Charger together that they redid, made really nice, sold it recently, and was in town, and we all went out to the Gary Street location, which I found was finer than the last location, which was finer than the last, which was finer than the Gary location. It's just circular, folks. It's circular logic is what's happening there. Boy, it was amazing. It was absolutely packed, as the keg always is, because it's always a great experience. As all of you who are winning these $50 gift certificates are going and finding out, if you didn't know that already, because I think everyone knows that. But thanks. Just wanted to shout out the keg and the great hospitality we had there tonight. That's it for me, Ken. Anything you want to say before we go?
28 plus minutes for Josh Morrissey. Another game where, he deserves a little bit of credit there. I know we shouted out the second point of the year the other day. Josh had some chances offensively that he was able to generate, and he was back to dancing at that blue line.
He's so good.
Yeah. So,
anyways, something else. Anyways, that was great. Okay, folks, that's it for us. You're going to see us again tomorrow night for another one of these conversations, which we hope we made worth your while. If we did, and if you do appreciate the conversations happening in this space, we implore you to appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent. That's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, Myers Pharmacy, Flame and Comfort, the Johnston Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs, and the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. We'll do this all over again tomorrow night. Ken will be in house to see the Jets and the Calgary Flames. I will be live from my hotel in Washington as I'm setting up to do the Ottawa Senators and Washington Capitals game, Hockey Night in Canada, on Saturday. I'll scout those two teams, and I'll let you know where they stand compared to the Winnipeg Jets start so far this season. Clearly, that won't happen until the Sunday game, but looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow night. Make sure you tune in. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.